on this episode of Indiana Education Insight.
Our primary priority is to help improve outcomes for kids with disabilities. So that's our number one initiative.
Every week, the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents is taking you inside today's Indiana education collaboration and tomorrow's education trends. We're staying on the pulse of public school innovators throughout Indiana and beyond. Join our conversation and contribute to our upcoming topics at iapssin.org/podcast. Here's your host, Dr. J.T. Koopman.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Indiana Education Insight. I'm Dr. J.T. Koopman, Executive Director of the IPSS. I'm proud to host this weekly show featuring Indiana education innovators from all over our great state, discussing trending topics in the public education space and bringing in a variety of Indiana education innovators to hear their perspective. This podcast is brought to you by the IPSS team and produced by our friends at Edge Media Studios. As with any organization, it takes skilled leadership to be successful, and that is one of the main missions of IPSS. Developing great education leaders. We're always excited to hear from experienced and passionate educators, so let's get started with today's conversation.
Topics and trends in Indiana education.
Today's guest is Dr. Pam Wright, Director of the Indiana Department of Education, Office of Special Education. Dr. Wright has served as a teacher and Director of Special Services in various Indiana school districts, so having the ability to look at education from various lenses is very important. Of course, Dr. Wright has been a tremendous asset to public education in Indiana. Let's find out how she views the issues of Indiana public schools. Welcome, Dr. Wright. Thank you for being with us today. We're very excited to have you on today's podcast.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and the role that you play in this position as the Director of Special Services for the state of Indiana.
Okay. I have been a special educator, a general educator. I've been a director of special education in Augusta, Maine, and then here in Indiana. And for 16 years, I was in Johnson County and as the director there, and now I am here at the State Department. So I feel like my experience has been very helpful in leading the state when it comes to special education issues.
Well, you've certainly done a great job, and I've had the privilege and pleasure of knowing you personally and professionally for several years, and we couldn't have a better leader at the helm.
Oh, thank you.
Not only as a district leader, but as at the state level with your vast experiences. So you have an interest in helping Indiana public schools in a variety of ways. What are your office's most prolific means of assisting school districts?
Well, I think we assist school districts in three main ways. The first one, obviously, is helping provide appropriate programs for students with disabilities.
Okay.
And in doing that, we always try to remember that students with disabilities are students first, and they belong to a community of learners that are equally important, and we need to be cognizant of the total picture of schools when we're working with kids with disabilities. So that's really our primary focus.
Okay.
We also provide fiscal management. We are the conduit for all the federal program funding. So all of the funding goes through our office and then out to the districts, and we manage all of that. And then finally, we provide due process procedures and coordination and help schools and parents through that process as well. So those are our three primary responsibilities.
That's an awesome task, and I'm certainly glad that you're up to that task and helping our Indiana students with that. So tell us about the resource centers that you have set up to elevate school districts.
We have about 10 resource centers that we support and we contract with to provide supports to schools. And it is anywhere from the IIEP Resource Center, They provide all kinds of services to schools, and the IEP, the management system goes through that resource center. So, but they also do a lot with helping teachers with goal writing and providing supports when it comes to having students in the least restrictive environment. So that is one of our biggest centers. We also have the Patents Project, which helps with assistive technology and augmentative communication. We work with the Secondary Transition Center, which helps with transition services. We have a variety of centers that are there for schools to tap into and get extra support and training from.
So are those resource centers, are they located throughout the state? Are they centrally located? And
They are located throughout the state, and they are available throughout the state. So if if the center isn't located in one particular area, then people will come to schools and to regional areas to provide support.
Okay. So how do people find out about those? Is there something on the website?
There is. If you go to the DOE website and type in special education, you'll get to our website, and then it's down in a list of resources, and it says the Indiana Resource Network, and there are all of our resources are listed there with the types of services that they provide. And then there are also several other resource centers that we don't support that are also listed there. So if it's not something that we can provide free of charge, there are things that schools can tap into for a nominal fee to get additional support.
Okay. Now, for our maybe less informed listeners, what does the area of special services encompass?
Our primary priority is to help improve outcomes for kids with disabilities. So that's our number one initiative. And the new ESSA regulations have helped us, provided some guidance for us along those lines. We, in the last year, we had a key advisor group that worked with us to develop some guidance and framework around that, and a couple of members of the Superintendent's Association were a part of that, and we appreciate them being a part of that to help us. But we really focus on the fact that student outcomes, for all students, has to do with having equitable access to the curriculum and to appropriate instruction, having high expectations, sharing the responsibility, and realizing that kids with disabilities are students first, and they come with a variety of needs just like all kids, and we need to figure out a way to support them so that they can reach their highest potential.
Okay. I am going to veer a little off script a little bit, given those comments and the fact that we've had some interesting conversation about graduation pathways. And we've had a general diploma in place, and some of the students that are served in special needs would earn a general diploma, and now they're saying that general diploma is probably not going to count toward graduation. So can you give us some insight about that?
Well, that was a ruling by the federal government, and because our Core 40 is our primary diploma, that is the diploma that they said will count. So students who are working towards a general diploma, the diploma will not count in our accountability formula. But I think it's really important to realize that the general diploma is there not just for kids with disabilities, but all kids.
Sure.
And it's an important diploma to earn and to be able to move forward with your life in employment and other opportunities. And just because it doesn't count does not mean we should discount the general diploma, because it's important for a lot of students.
Absolutely. Well, I hope we can get that figured out. I know
too.
there's been lots of discussions in relationship to graduation pathways, and I like the way you put that. Don't discount that diploma, and so I hope we can. I know that Department of Education is trying to work with the feds on that, and
Yes, they are.
And we'll get it figured out. And I know that the state ESSA plan has been submitted to the governor's office and will be shortly submitted to the feds in September, I believe.
That's
So
correct. Yes.
that I hope we can get all of that in there and get that figured out so that we can make sure that no student feels discounted
Right.
as a result of that.
Right.
The Indiana legislature and Congress at the federal level have passed several education-related laws. Are there some of those that were major influences in your department?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, the Every Student Succeeds Act is an act that covers all students and all subgroups, and it's really important to remember the tenets of ESSA, which has to do with equity and access and making sure that all kids have access to grade level standards and be held to high expectations, all students.
Right.
So that has had a major impact on the work that we're doing in the field.
Okay. Any other laws that come to mind, whether it be accessibility or whether it be testing or any of those things affect your world?
Well, the part of ESSA has to do with assessment, and one of the things that has changed with ESSA is that students that are being tested through the alternate achievement standards, through the alternate assessment, they will be counted up to 1% for participation. So in the past, students were counted if they passed, and any number of students could actually take the alternate assessment. But now the new ESSA regulations say that only 1% of the population of students who are taking the test will count for the alternate achievement testing.
Okay. All right.
So that's another big, that's a change for the districts.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a positive thing for schools, or is it
Well, I
tough
think
to
it's
achieve?
I think it's going to be challenging. I don't think it's going to be anything that isn't manageable. Right now, we have about 1.4% of our students taking the alternate achievement test. So it's just a matter of educating schools so that they know what a significant cognitive disability is, because those are the students that may take the I-STAR or the alternate achievement test. So it just depends on what the schools, taking a closer look at the students who have taken that in the past and then applying the definition of what a significant cognitive disability is.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, there's just so much to know about, and I'm glad we have experts like you that are helping guide us. Where do you see the future of Indiana public schools headed?
Oh, wow. Oh, I wish I had a crystal ball for that. I have always been a proponent of public schools, and I feel very strongly that public schools will find their way and will continue to provide quality services to all kids. I think that we're kind of in an adjustment period where we have charters and choice and vouchers and a lot of different opportunities for parents. And so I think public schools are trying to figure it all out. And I have every confidence that public schools will continue to be strong and support all of our kids in Indiana.
Well, we do have a changing landscape.
We do.
And it's not just in Indiana, but it's throughout the country that the landscape is changing. And I certainly, as the title of our association, the Indiana Association of Public Schools Superintendents, so we are proponents and advocates for public schools as well. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here, so to speak. Schools have been the backbone of democracy and of our country since its inception, and so to see some radical changes occur has been an adjustment, and a bit disconcerting. But we'll continue to serve kids and do the best things that we can do. So speaking of that, in closing, what advice do you have for teachers and school leaders especially in the area of special needs or exceptional needs students?
Well, I think that it's important, as I said at the very beginning, that to understand that kids with disabilities are not that much different than any other students that you serve. Yes, they have some unique needs. They have some challenges. There are lots of things that we need to be doing for to support students so that they can have access to education. But I think that we need to always remember that they are students just like everybody else, and we need to figure out how they learn and what we can do to provide the best education possible for them.
Well, again, I want to thank Dr. Wright for being our guest on IPSS's edition of Indiana Education Insight. Pam, thank you so much for being with us today. Really pleased that you're at the helm and guiding us in this area. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now it's time to wrap up this episode with my take on the current state of affairs in the Indiana education landscape.
Dr. JT's closing comments.
With that being said, unfortunately, even though we have so much research about the fact that Indiana and all states are facing a teacher shortage, just like we need a commitment to high-quality public schools and educators, we need to make an investment in high-quality teacher preparation program for our public schools. It is my hope that we can demonstrate the value of well-prepared teachers in our state by showing them respect, paying them well, and providing them some form of benefits that will ensure a future forward career. It is my hope that we can get our legislators and our state leaders to contribute to these programs on behalf of Hoosier communities. However, much of this research has been dismissed by our legislators. I see these as investments in our children and our state, not as an expenditure. Perhaps we can pursue this issue and others in another segment. On our next show, September 11th, we welcome Mr. Bobby Cox, Commissioner of the Indiana Athletic Association. Perhaps he can provide some additional insight into the State House and education. Join us for that and more on the next Insight into Indiana Education. Thanks for being part of education. Please stand up for Indiana Public Schools.